People knew that the sale was happening, they would wait until the sale is actually happening so they would go shop for that good. Therefore, decrease in demand today, shift in demand to the left. Changes in income. This refers to the consequences of a change in income on the consumption of a certain good. Goods whose demand increases as income rises are called normal goods. Some goods, however, as income rises, decrease in demand. These are called the inferior goods. A good example of this would be used in clothing or accessories. Rich people are less likely to go to the thrift store and buy these items. However, demand for these goods increase when the income decreases. Moving on to changes in price of related goods. Related goods are goods that either act as a substitute or complement for a specific good. Two goods are substitutes if an increase in price of one good makes a consumer more willing to buy the other good, and vice versa. Think of Pepsi and Coke. Alternatives. Complement goods are the opposite. Two goods are complements if an increase in the price of one good, and therefore the decrease in the demand, causes the people to be less willing to buy the other one as well. Think of peanut butter and jelly. So I'm going to be showing two graphs. One is going to be showing the peanut butter, and as in this graph, which is just PB, the supply curve is moving to the right, and in the jelly graph, the demand is moving to the right. This is jelly. Now these are both complement goods, and the decrease in price for the peanut butter will cause an increase in demand for the jelly. So, moving on with that. Second. Now, let's move on to shift in supply. Mainly the result. This is mainly the result of three factors. First, change in input prices. Inputs are goods that are needed to produce other goods. An increase in the price of inputs would increase the cost of production of the resulting good, therefore causing a leftward shift in the supply curve. The opposite is also true. Second, changes in technology. Technology can improve in order to increase the efficiency of production of any particular good. This would therefore decrease the cost of production and cause a rightward shift in the supply. Changes in technology can come in many forms, such as new factory machines or genetically modified seeds, or among others. Now I will be showing a graph of that technological change in result of the better factory machinery. Right, so P, Q, right, so it would start off here in U1, Q1, this would be P1, and the equilibrium point change to E2 up here. And this is the technological change. And moving on. Moving on to changes in expectations. Like the shift in demand, sellers can try to anticipate periods of time when the price of a certain good would increase or decrease, and accommodate supply of that specific good accordingly. Anticipation of a future increase in a price would increase supply in the future, but decrease supply today. The opposite is true as well. Now, for determining the money supply, you need to know that, well, first we have to define some terms before we can move any further. Now, the money supply is the total value of the financial assets that are considered money, while the reserve ratio is the fraction of the bank deposits that a bank holds as reserves. Now, the reserve requirements are rules by the Federal Reserve that set the minimum reserve ratio for banks. In the U.S., the minimum reserve ratio for banks is 10%. Banks create money with the money they receive from deposits, but how? Let's just say if someone deposits $1,000 into a bank, the money supply does not change immediately, as currencies in circulation drop by 1,000. But checkable bank deposits are risen by 1,000. However, this bank can now lend some of this money to other people, therefore putting the cash back into circulation. By putting this money back into circulation, the bank has actually increased the money supply. This does not stop here, as the money in circulation will eventually be put back into the bank, which can then be which the bank can then lend the money out, and so on and so forth. Right. So, in this explanation, we're assuming that banks are subject to our reserve requirement, as well as lend out any other excess services. Any reserves over and above requires reserves. Lastly, we assume that any money an individual borrows from a bank is deposited into a checkable bank account. Deposit. So, this is the money multiplier, 1 divided by the rate. Now, the increase in money supply goes up by 1,000 because it's being deposited. So, you have 1,000 divided by 8 equals to 1,000 divided by 0.3, which will equal then 1,000. And this would be the increase in money supply. So, now moving forward with the lesson. Now, with this in mind, the total increase in a checkable bank deposit and therefore the money supply from a particular bank deposit can be derived from the equation. Deposits and reserve ratio. When scaled back to 1 reserve ratio, it is called the money multiplier. Now our next topic will be perfect competition, the short run. Firms is perfect competition in the short run are price takers. That is, they have no control over the fluctuation of the price, the fluctuation of the price. There are no exits from the market. Either produce or shut. They either produce or shut down temporarily. So this is the supply curve, and this is shutdown right here, and this is the positive amount, this is the negative. And when P equals MC, P will equal MR. Moving on. Now for P equals MR, the extra revenue cost from selling an extra good is equal. Now the price that people are going to pay for it. We produce where P equals MR. If P is above ATC, positive econ profits. If P is between ATC and or ABC, then the produce, but it will negate economic profits, producing to cover some of the FC costs. If below ABC, then it would shut down. Now, moving on to price controls. There are two different types. Price ceilings, typically imposing during crisis. A price ceiling is a maximum price sellers are allowed to charge for the good. It is put under the equilibrium price, which causes shortages.